Hey folks, welcome to the Houseplant Coach. This is Veronica with Oh Happy Plants, and I just got a question on my free member community. It's at members.ohhappyplants.online. And the question references something that I already addressed in the podcast, watering Oh Happy Dirt, and something that I don't know if I've made an episode on. And this person was asking about fertilizing Oh Happy Dirt. And, the whole, is it different than other soil? When should I fertilize? Blah, blah, blah. All those things, all those questions we have. So, just kind of like some tips about fertilizing in general. Number one, the reason one of the reasons. So the main reason that I don't use, nitrate-based chemically produced fertilizer, it uses the Haber-Bosch process to produce it, and it consumes fossil fuels to create the fertilizer and produces a ton of CO2. I want to say it's a full percentage of the global CO2 emissions, like 1%. That's a fuck ton of CO2. And so in terms of global warming, it's like, yeah, maybe not the best plan here. So that's a reason. There are many other reasons. I actually saw an ad that was a perfect illustration. I forget what company put it out, but it's one of those brand new houseplant care product, or maybe it's just plants in general, plant care products. I get ads for that stuff all the time because of my Google search history. So this ad was like, would you rather feed your plants this? And it was like the granular, slow release fertilizer, and like, I think they had like a pile of gummy bears or gummy worms or something there. Or would you rather feed your plants this? And it's like, the food pyramid only spread out, or whatever they're using. I guess they're using My Plate now. But it was like, whole foods, veggies, all sorts of things. So it's kind of the same as, would we rather eat a diet made of fully processed foods with like sprayed on nutrients? Or would we rather get our vitamins and stuff from broccoli and shit? Like, what's better for us? There are many reasons that the latter is better for us. And also, I'm not here to food shame anybody. If that's what you can tolerate, then eat it. Like last year, I don't know how many people, I don't know how much I've said this. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease last year. And last year I was eating white rice, which I hate. Some people like it better than brown rice. And I'm like, it's not even good. I don't know. I couldn't have brown rice. So I was eating white rice and chicken. I could have a small amount of grass-fed butter, sea salt on things, and eggs. And there were some days that I had 12 eggs. I was eating sorry, I've got this alarm going off and yelling at me. So eat what you have to. Eat what you can. Try not to be malnourished, right? Eat to support your body. And also, when it comes to feeding our plants, I prefer to feed them whole foods. They don't really have a choice, and it's more like what they would get out in nature. Leaf falls on the ground, worms and microbes like, the fungi, the beneficial fungi and whatnot, digest it. It goes into the soil, it goes through the plant roots and is taken up again. Somebody doesn't come through and dig up oil and, burn it, create this whole process for creating nitrogen fertilizer out of that and then feed it to the plant outside. That's ridiculous. We don't need to do that. Not for our house plants. I understand that large-scale agriculture wouldn't be possible, like feeding this many people on this planet. They say it wouldn't be possible. But would it? What if we just didn't live in cities? What if everybody had a garden? What if we never left that? What if we never stopped doing that? Then would it be possible to feed more people? I don't know. Do we really need factory farms? But yeah, plenty of people don't want to go all homestead chic. I have this idea. So, okay, tangent, another one. I have this idea in my head and so many people do, of buying like 100 acres in 20 years or something, 100 acres of farmland. It doesn't have to be close to cities. It would be nice to be, an hour or two from a large city. or a medium-sized city even. But buying like 100 acres of farmland, farm/woods, and building a bunch of cabins on it, inviting all my friends, and like, what if there was just like this old lady flower farm? And we could have, like artist retreats, and there could be like bunk houses for people to come and stay, or even like individual cabins or something like that for people to come and stay and do like artist residencies. And there'd be a kiln and a pottery studio and a painting studio and like all the things, and housing for people to come and stay. And I don't know if I've talked about WWOOF. It stands for Worldwide Work on Organic Farms, WWOOF. It basically, it's a website, you go there, and I used a different one too. I forget what it was called. But you go there, you hook up with people who own farms, and they're looking for essentially free labor, and they provide you with a place to stay, and it may be a shared room, or it may be your own room, or it may be a whole separate cabin. There were plenty of different arrangements that I experienced while I did this. And they provide you with meals, and typically they'll like, one of the places I stayed was like, do you need toothpaste? And I'm like, no, I brought toothpaste, and like, I have some money, so I'm good, like I can provide for basic necessities, but they provide you with that. And a piece of the deal is that they show you the area, so you can travel the world and essentially stay for free. You work, I think it's 4 to 6 hours a day, something like 4 to 6 days per week, and you want to hash that out before you get to the farm, because if you're expecting to work 4 days a week for 4 hours a day, and you get there and they're like, no, 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, then it's like, that's a different kind of situation. Room and board is not worth 36 hours a week. Thank you very much. My time is worth more than that. But also you learn a lot. And so I was planting trees. I was helping to tame some wild cows, Irish cows. I forget the breed, but it's like the Irish breed of cow, the native breed of cow. And they're so sweet and so cute. And also like these ones were not tame. And one had like massive horns. Anyway, so that was a thing. And like, I built a cob bread oven, the igloo shaped ones, up on this stone plinth thing. I dug the clay off the land myself, and we stomped it with rubber boots on to make cob. What else? I chopped so much wood. Oh my God. Splitting wood was like a hobby of mine. I love splitting wood. I haven't for a long time. I would probably fuck up my back if I tried it right now, but because I'd overdo it because it's fun. But anyway, you can do this. I was going to say if you're young, but like honestly, we built a greenhouse too. I was in the first stages. I was like digging out the land. It was on a slope, so we had to dig it out so it was flat. Yeah, a lot of things. And for part of it, I was actually acting as like an impromptu nanny too, because the folks I was staying with had, I think the boy was like maybe 3 or 4. I think he was 4. And the girl was maybe 15 months old, and she she was 11 months old when I got there, I think. She decided she liked me like right off the bat, and that had never happened. And so her mom was like, oh, you want to go to her? Like there was one time, I still remember, God, her little face. She reached for me when her mom was holding her. And Kira was like, oh, yeah, take her. Like, yes, give me my hands for a minute. And so it was pretty fun to hang out with the kiddos and do all of that. But yeah, anyway, so woofing is a great option, especially if you're in college or, before pre-kids. But honestly, I have thought about taking Silas and going somewhere to some other country and working on a farm and just bringing him and being like, hey kid, this is what we're doing. He doesn't, I was raised on a farm, so like he can do things. He's, perfectly capable, but he hasn't gotten the experience Like by the time I was his age, I was able to do the milking by myself, Like, I don't know. He hasn't used a whole lot of tools, so that's on me. But anyway, I've thought about that because it'd be fun. But I fully encourage anybody to do that. Obvious travel safety rules apply. Make sure you reach out to people. Make sure you're comfortable with situations. But it's really cool. Why am I talking about this right now? We're supposed to be talking about fertilizing Oh Happy Dirt. Okay, so anyways, I don't use the chemical fertilizers for my houseplants. In the soils, I use the additives that I use for the soils are things like seed meals, kelp meal, organics, and by that I mean shit that's made out of plants or whatever, plants or animals, but not chemicals. I don't mean that the things that are in these dirts are actually organic. Some of the things are, some of them aren't. When it says made from organic ingredients, well, no, or like derived from organic ingredient, like there's language that you can use where organic doesn't mean organic. Organic just means like plant matter. And I don't use the word at all on any of my products because I feel like it's too fucking confusing for people. I don't want anybody to be thinking that what they're using is organic, but it's, organic input materials, I think is what it is. That's the allowable language. And all that means is that it's like, ground up plant shit or worm shit or whatever, some kind of shit that you're putting on there. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was grown in an organic way. Like it's not something that's a food that you would buy at the store that says it's organic, no pesticides on it or anything like that. So anyway, onward. So Oh Happy Dirt has that sort of stuff in it. So the perk of that is if you do want to use a chemical fertilizer, like a liquid fertilizer or something, you're not going to be building up like an imbalance or burning your plants because of what's in the soil already. If you repot plants in, sorry, I'm just going to shut my computer because it doesn't stop with its fan. I need to get, I think I have one of those things, the little, like a laptop desk with a fan in it, because the fan never seems to turn off. It seems to be always hot when it's on my lap. And like, balanced on my knees even. So, but it's a few years old, so maybe that's it. Anyway, onward. So, okay. If you want to use a chemical fertilizer, that's fine with these soils. I have episodes on how I use fertilizer and how I recommend using fertilizer, and they're pretty early on. I want to say it's probably episode 11 or something like that. I still remember recording it. Sean and the boys, I had a back injury, so I was waiting out that pickleball game, but Sean and the boys were up at Point Defiance Park playing pickleball, and I was hanging out in the car. I think I attempted to play and then tweaked myself a little bit and was like, yeah, I need to go and lay on my back for a while. Anyway, so yeah, one of those episodes talks about fertilizing. I recommend just a really light fertilization every time you water, just because then you get in the habit of it. It's not because plants need it every time. Like a lot of people do it once a month, and like a lot of fertilizer instructions say use this once a month, but you're going to water more than once a month. And then how the fuck are you going to remember when it's time to fertilize? Unless you okay, this is the first watering of the month. It's on the second day of the month, or like say June 3rd comes around and you haven't watered yet. So it's watering day and that's your fertilizing day. I'd fucking forget. It's just the truth. And welcome to ADHD, I guess, but I just do it every time because then I'm in the habit. And once again, back to people who water on a schedule. Check your plants on a schedule, give them whatever water that they actually need, but don't assume that they need water every single week because they may be getting less light or the airflow may have been off or it may have been way cooler or way hotter. You might need to water even more or more frequently, but checking on a schedule is the best way to ensure that you're not forgetting about anybody or not forgetting to do it for 3.5 weeks, which I'm just gonna like hide under a blanket right now out of sheer embarrassment. So I'm the forgetful waterer for sure. And I'm getting better. I set myself a little alarm that goes off. I think it's like Tuesday nights or something. See, I can't even remember which night it is, but there's an alarm that goes off and I'm like, well, shit, did I already water this week? Or, check everybody at the very least and make sure that they don't need anything. And so now I do it once a week. I used to, and then Sean died and then I was out of the habit. So, back to fertilizing. Okay. So the reason that I hesitate to use any kind of granular chemical fertilizer, if you are mixing your own soil and this is what you choose to use, that's fine. I would not mix a bunch of soil, add the fertilizer, and then store it for a long time. And this is why it can get kind of sketchy. Like in the springtime, I think it's probably fine if you're buying bags of soil from the store and they have the chemical fertilizers, because as long as it's not like the pallet of soil that has sat there all winter, then you should be fine, as long as it's fresh from the manufacturer. So a granular fertilizer doesn't say, oh, look, I was potted with a plant. Now I'll start releasing fertilizer. It just releases fertilizer the whole time it's exposed to moisture. And that soil, when you open a bag, it's not dry. It's wet in there because they mix it wet and they ship it wet. And so the whole time it's sitting there, the fertilizer is releasing into the soil, which means all of the fertilizer, if that bag of soil is sitting there wet for like 6 months, it may release all of what's in that little granule, and then you're going to have nitrogen burn when you repot your plants. So that is why I don't use those, because, I go through so much soil, like just because I mix it and I sell it, like that wouldn't be a problem. But I don't use that. Like if I were to buy a bag of soil, I wouldn't buy that type because of that issue, because you don't know how long it's been sitting there, especially if it's like, December or February and you're buying soil. It's like, maybe reach for the stuff with the organic input materials. Like if it says it has some kind of manure, or be wary of recycled forest products. Don't believe that means compost. Honestly, so much compost out there doesn't actually, maybe it has some nutrients in it, but it does not have very much good stuff because it's like rotted sawdust. Like that's literally what recycled forest products means. It's like sawdust. It's not good for the plants necessarily. It's just like bulk. And what would be good is something that has, I think, Fox Farms has some good ones. Some people say that they're too rich for their plants. So I don't know if what they're doing is potentially using like a composted manure or something, or, whatever, composted fish fertilizer or something. And then maybe not composting it enough. And so it's not broken down, because manure has a lot of nitrogen in it in the form of ammonia that's broken down, cow pee. Cows don't like pee and poop in different places, right? So if you have composted manure, it needs to be composted really, really well. Otherwise, it can burn the plants because it's just not broken down yet, or it could be too concentrated too. So you want to be kind of careful with things like that. I don't use any manures in my products, number one, because I don't put poo inside of my house except for bug poo. I would use worm castings for my own plants. I don't in the soils in Oh Happy Dirt because they can come with fungus gnats, but I would. So if you use worm casting, that's fine. Worm castings are very different than cow castings, let's say. But bug poop is great. It is very, it's dry. It's, I sell it in the online store. My product name is Bug Shit because it's bug shit, and I get to name things whatever I want, so that's what we're calling it. Let's see. Yeah, but back to the point of the chemical fertilizers. If you are mixing soil at home and you are going to use it all right away, or if you mix it up and don't add the granular fertilizer, Just leave it aside and add it to whatever you're going to use right away. That's a good way to use that. But I don't use any of those things, so there's no worries about burning your plants with my soils because they don't contain any manures. They don't contain anything that's going to burn your plants. They just have good stuff that's going to break down slowly, or maybe is already somewhat broken down because, you know, if I have a soil bin that like I mixed the batch last week or something, the mycelium goes to work really quickly on all of those ingredients, all the seed meals and the bug poo and everything. But it's not going to break down into something that's going to burn the plants because it's gentle, you know. I mean, it's like baby shampoo versus, you know, bleach. It's a lot easier. It's a lot gentler on the little planties, and it's more like whole food too because it literally is. Anyway, so how to fertilize with soils that are with chemical fertilizers. I would be really careful with using another chemical fertilizer on those soils for at least 3 months. So if you have just repotted into a soil that has like a perfectly acceptable NPK ratio for the plant, and it's going to be lower for a soil. Like fertilizers might say, like there's a 936, I forget what the name of the fertilizer is, but it's really common for use with houseplants. Oh, it's Dynagrow. So there's a 936 out there. There's a, what is it? I think Jack's All-Purpose 20-20-20, which is pretty heavy duty. You're not going to see numbers like that in a potting soil. For the potting soil, you're going to see something like, you know, maybe 1 to 2% tops nitrogen. Probably less than that because, I mean, honestly, it might be 0.15% or something like that because all of that is mixed in throughout the soil. And so if it's something where it's going to break down slowly or going to release slowly, then just read your ingredient bag. You know, like know what's in your soil. If you are using Oh Happy Dirt, you don't have to worry about anything. If you're using something that has manures in it, be a little bit careful for a couple of months. If you're using something that has a granular fertilizer and it is a chemical-based fertilizer, then I would just not fertilize for a few months after repotting. And you're going to see increased growth, which is great because it's using these nutrients, and then just go ahead and add in your normal fertilizing routine. With Oh Happy Dirt, you can fertilize right out the gate. It's not going to do anything bad to your plants to have a little extra. And anything that they can't use that like the microbes break down may just flush out the bottom. But you don't need to. So that's the other thing is that you can if you just want to stay in the habit. And if you do ever notice any kind of nutrient toxicity, you can use the Tap Happy Soil Flush, and that mobilizes nutrients and flushes them out. It also, I think, who was I talking to? I was talking to somebody. The Soil Flush, it does not make the nutrients unavailable to your plant. It just mobilizes them. So it makes them more free to move around in the soil. So that means that it can actually help a plant take up more nutrients if the soil has something in it where the nutrient is like stuck. You know, if it's sucked into some ingredient in the soil, like vermiculite has the ability to like hold nutrients. And so if the nutrients are like trapped in there, I don't think they really would be, but if on the off chance they are, then the Tap Happy can loosen those up basically so they float around even more. And then the plant can take them up or they'll flush out the bottom. If you are flushing your plants because you have noticed some kind of like a nitrate buildup or something like that, just like a salt buildup on the pot. If you're flushing your plants, then I recommend to use the Tap Happy at the rate that's recommended and just flush through, soak the soil entirely and then just keep pouring water. Keep pouring water. And if you're just using it to water to make the nutrients more available, then you can just water with it as normal. And then whatever water does come out the bottom, you can just let that drain out. And that's kind of like insurance against over-fertilization. And with Tap Happy, like if you're going to be flushing your plants, if you have really hard well water, you might want to flush your plants like once a month or something like that, if you have a whole lot of dissolved solids. But if you don't, then, because like a lot of that, like if your well is like near limestone, like some kind of a calcium deposit in the ground, then you might have a lot of dissolved calcium. Some of it is going to be bioavailable to the plants. Some of it's not. I want to say it's about 20% is bioavailable, but I'm not entirely sure on that, so don't quote me. But some of it is going to be able, like the plant will, bioavailable means it's in typically the ionic form. I think, what is it? Boron is the only one, I think, that doesn't have to be in the ionic form to be taken up by plants, but I might be crazy. So again, don't quote me on that. I'm just like trying to pull stuff out of my head. And there's a lot of stuff in there and it's kind of a mess. So it's like the closet that you just keep throwing things into and then eventually you forget what's in the back. That's my brain. And the door doesn't really shut all the way. Yeah, I need to sort that closet. Okay, so yeah, if you have well water that has a whole lot of dissolved solids in it, if you have like really hard water, then you probably want to be using the Tap Happy Soil Flush, maybe monthly, maybe with every watering, just to keep all those nutrients mobile, and then they'll come out the bottom of the pot as the water drips. Like if you top water and the water pours out the bottom and you just let it drip a bit, then it'll be flushing some of those nutrients away so it doesn't accumulate too much, because too much calcium, too much anything in the soil can cause, maybe not anything, but anyway, too much of certain nutrients in the soil can cause nutrient lockout, where it will, like, just like with people, like if I were to eat, 500% of the RDA of zinc every single day for a year, I would probably develop, or maybe more than 500%. I don't know how much it would take, but I would develop a copper deficiency eventually, because copper and zinc compete for uptake. And with soil, calcium and magnesium and sodium and what else? All of those three duke it out in there. So you want to have a good mix. It doesn't mean you need to cut down on any of them unless you know that your water has way too much calcium in it. Then be careful with adding any calcium fertilizer. Okay, where are we going? I think I've covered most of the fertilizer stuff. So basically, if you've just repotted, wait a few months. It's not going to hurt anything. It's going to be totally fine for your plants. If you're using Oh Happy Dirt or another product that has similar ingredients, again, seed meals, worm castings, insect frass, all fine. Any kind of recycled plant matter, that's totally fine. If you're using something, it's fine to fertilize right away after you repot. If you're using something that has a chemical fertilizer, or even something that has an actual animal poo that probably has pee in it, because pee breaks down into, the ammonia breaks down into nitrate, then you want to be a little more careful, because it can get dicey. I think that's all I need to say. Is that all I need to say? Did I cover everything? I'm trying to I'm looking around, did I trying to trace the pathways in this podcast through time as if I can see them in the air. I can't. Surprise. Anyway, I'm looking at pretty new Monstera leaves. I'm looking at what is this? A black ginger. It's so pretty and it smells good too. Probably it smells good when I crush leaves, which is not good. Shutting my curtains. But I'm looking at a recovering ficus. Poor little baby got spider mites and started telling me it was pissed off. I'm looking at an alocasia that didn't like to be near a heater. Surprise. No surprise. I'm looking at one of these days, I'm actually, I had this thought the other day when I was about to do all my watering, that I should take my watering can and do a podcast as I move through my watering process. And then I'm like, wait, that would take way too long. And I would drop the phone because I'm just talking into my phone right now. I don't edit this shit at all. So business pro tip, if there's something that you're like, I really want to do this, but I have to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to set that up, and I have to have theme music, and I have to have an intro, and I have to make it complicated. Okay, hang on. What's the minimum viable product? And so for this podcast, I downloaded an app where I hit the record button and just talk. And like just there again for the third or fourth time since I started, and an alarm went off that is reminding me to do something else for the business that I'm like putting off right now. Welcome to my life right now, but I don't know why I'm putting it off. I shouldn't. I'm not going to. I'm going to do it next. Anyways, but alarms go off and I just snooze them and keep going. I say a fuck ton of ums, and I don't pay some editor to fix it because number one, y'all are fabulous, and so far either don't care or don't tell me about it if you do care. So honestly, I'm not going to start paying an editor yet. So this is what you get. And so it's just one of those things. If you have something in you to get done, you can do it sloppy. If it's a good enough thing that people want, they will come. So, and don't even get me started on what like us thinking of ourselves as good enough. Like, do the thing. Just go do the thing. If people don't like it, then they're just not gonna, like, you'll figure it out, and either you'll tweak it or you'll stop doing that or you'll figure out something else to do, whatever. But like if nobody ever listened to this podcast, I would not still be recording episodes after 2 years. It's been 2 years. No, it's been 3. Shit. Maybe. Has it been 3? I can't even remember. I think I started this before I moved, so that would have been 2021 in the spring. What year is it? Yeah, it's been 3 years. I think it's been 3 years. Anyway, yeah, so do the thing. Please do the thing. Like, you won't still be doing it in 3 years unless either you really enjoy it or you're getting traction, or probably both. Because if you listen to this podcast and you haven't been diagnosed with ADHD and you feel like you and I are like totally on a level, then you should probably go think about, like, just go read some articles about ADHD, like the presentation in adults, especially if you're, if you were raised female in the society, like, oh, do we get told how to mask shit? So, and also pro tip, when you take those tests, they were built for little boys. Like, oh, think about yourself when you were a kid. Did you do this? Did you feel this way? Blah, blah, blah. The first time I took it, I was 1 point under what would be diagnosable. And I'm like, wait a minute. These questions were written by a man. Like, they were written for a white man, too, I'm sure. And so they were written from the perspective of what it felt like to be a white boy with ADHD who was allowed to fucking act out. Girls don't get to yell and scream and be really angry and express their anger all the time. We just don't get to do that. So the question about, were you angry a lot? Did you hit people? Did you have outbursts? No, because I was nice and quiet. Would I have, had I been socialized as male? Probably. So, yeah, answer it as if you were a little white boy. Anyway, onward. What's next? If you need dirt, check out my dirt. I don't know. I was going to say I'm so bad at this. I'm not bad at telling people about my products. Got to work on that self-talk, right? I put out a bonsai soil. So if you have bonsais, there is bonsai soil now. I am working on, there's a terrarium kit that's going to come out that's specifically going to be for terrariums with critters. And I think I'm going to be leaving out the mustard seed meal and the neem meal entirely because of apparently, like, so I did some Googling, and apparently snakes don't like strong smells, and I had no idea. They have a good sniffer, and it's their tongue. And I'm like, I wouldn't be wanting to like lick that shit. And then the other thing that I'm learning is that chameleons are like, apparently they have bad aim. And, and so, hi, chameleon guy. I am not going to name names because I didn't talk to you about that, but like shout out right now. Funny story. Somebody who buys my dirt, reached out and said, hey, like, I want to use this in my chameleon's enclosure. And I'm like, well, let me just look up and see if they have any issues with any of my ingredients, and because I had just been working on a terrarium mix, and this, I think she suggested that I create a little terrarium kit. But I had already been working on a terrarium mix for a friend of mine who lives up the street. And so I'm like, oh, hey, I've been working on this. Let me just like, do this and this and this and send you some things. And then we started talking about it because I don't want it to just be a thing for snakes. I want it to be kind of more, what's the word? Versatile. There's a word. So I was like, do you want to give me some feedback on this? And I will, send you, I think I included some samples of like just little tiny samples of individual substrates, just to see if any particular thing really would work better than any other thing, because I don't know about chameleons. I don't know what goes on with them. And one point that she made was that apparently sometimes they miss their food and they'll eat the dirt instead. I'm like, shit. And so we figured out a solution for that. And also another problem is that some of the plants are going to be directly in the line of the misters in the cage, and they're just going to be soaking all the time. And then other plants are way away from the misters. And so they have the same lights on and stuff, but they don't get as much water. And so they have to be either manually watered or just kind of like somehow exist. I think they have to be manually watered. So anyway, we're making a kit that has a couple of options, and it's going to be available pretty soon. But then, so she said that there's this other guy who runs this whole website with chameleon enclosures, and they don't really have a good dirt. And so I'm like, okay, I can totally make that. So she loops this guy in on the conversation and like, hey, do you want to sell this? Blah, blah, blah. And do you have any ideas? And then this guy is like, oh my God, I listened to the Houseplant Coach podcast on airplane trips, I think is what he said. And I'm just like, holy shit, small world. Totally funny. And so anyway, fun projects are coming out and I'm pretty excited about it. I'm not full-time in product development mode, but I'm definitely doing some. And I'm going to be working more on putting out more information, because quality information is really like, it's what got me started with this. Is honestly, I worked in the professional houseplant industry. What's the word? I mean, I was a professional plant nerd. That's what I called myself. I still call myself that. Though I am arguably less professional now because I curse a lot more. But anyway, so I was, driving a route, watering plants. That's what I did. And people see you with a watering can. Even my first day on the job, they start asking me questions. And I had houseplants for, God, since I was... my own houseplants in my room that I cared for since I was like 11 years old. And I started that job, I was 27, 28? I think I was 28 when I started that job. So I'd already had houseplants for like 17 years. And I didn't have all the, I could answer some questions, but people would automatically trust you because you're the person caring for this plant in this lobby of an office building, and you have a watering can, so you must know what you're doing. And I'm like, well, that's not really true. So, what I did was I spent years learning. And then it was about the 3 to 3.5 year mark. And I'm talking about caring for thousands of houseplants. There were days that I would see a couple thousand houseplants in one day. And, care for all of them. And it's a lot of running around with a giant water tank that weighs like, I don't know, 140 pounds when it was full. So it was a lot, and you start seeing patterns, and I'm really spatially oriented, so I won't necessarily remember what's going on with a certain plant if I'm not there in front of it. But if I'm there in front of it, I will be like, oh yeah, last week, this is what was happening, or 2 weeks ago or whatever. And so now this is happening. And I started noticing patterns, and it was really funny because the more finicky types of plants, the ones that respond faster, would all, like 3 months after a person starts the job, all of that type of plant needs to be replaced. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. And then at the 6-month mark, it's dracaenas that need to be replaced, because that's when the overwatering root rot starts showing up, is 6 months later. And that's why when people, I love all the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed people on Instagram who are talking about their houseplants and who started a Plantstagram and who are sharing like care information and stuff, because the enthusiasm is there. And if you've had plants for 6 months, you haven't had the time to notice the patterns yet. And so showing people your houseplants and learning and sharing stuff and building the Plantstagram is a great idea. And, reading all the shit that you can, and just be really careful with your sources of information, and like watch out for those, after about a year, a whole other set of plants developed other issues, like there are patterns to things, and caring for all those ridiculous amounts of houseplants really gave me like more insight than I ever would have gotten otherwise. Like, Jesus Christ. Like an office building with 1,000 houseplants in it. And that's one of like 150 buildings that I go into or something. It's a lot of information. It's really, really fascinating. And my brain is one that tracks patterns and stuff like that. So I kind of had the brain for, wrapping all of that up and putting a bow on it, all of that experience and putting a bow on it. But yeah, just be really aware that there are patterns that will come out after having plants for a long time. And some plants will act a certain way when they're small and like well contained and fresh from the nursery, and then they'll act entirely differently. Like I'm looking at this cutting of a Monstera. What are you, an Aurea? I got this one. God, when did I get it? A year and a half ago? I think it was one of the first plants I bought. God, it's really interesting. When your entire world is rocked, like I am a fucking houseplant junkie, right? And like I decided, I don't know if I've shared this yet. I decided, there's like a pod of whales and a murder of crows, and for houseplants, it's a clutter of houseplants, I decided. Because if you only have one, I don't know if you're doing it right. Like sometimes people have like 4 or 5, and I'm like, either I'm pathological or they are. Because I don't feel like there's a middle ground. Once you have more than 10, then you have 200, right? Like, I mean, I don't think I have 200 right now, but still. It's ridiculous. I guess there are people in the world that don't have to be completely obsessed with something if they enjoy it. I don't relate to that experience at all. Yeah. I can't remember what I was talking about. Oh, this Monstera. Yeah, when Sean died, all of that was just turned off because I couldn't enjoy anything. And because it just, the sad takes over. And when I wanted to go buy a plant one day, I was like, oh, this is a step, like, back towards the land of the living. It was really interesting. And so I fucking did it, because I'm like, hell yeah, I will go buy a plant, and I will enjoy that plant. And I bought a plant, and I think then I bought 2 more. Actually, it might have been that philodendron over there. It's I think it's a philodendron verrucosum Amazon sunset. It's got really like red on the back of its leaves. It's beautiful. And maybe this was number 2 that I got. But anyway, this cutting of a monstera, like, if you buy a tiny baby monstera, it's going to act a certain way. It's going to, like, I see people all the time who are like, oh my God, this plant grew. What do I do with it? You know, because they bought the plant that came from a baby plant. It was like little tiny, and then it started growing. And now it's this vine that wants to climb their house and they don't know what to do. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of like when you get a puppy thinking it's small and cute and adorable, and then it turns out you got a Great Dane and now you don't know what to do with it. And it's about, like, what is it, the 10-month mark when people return their giant dogs to a shelter. And it's just sad. And so being able to deal with mature plants, like, you can keep chopping it up and keep it small, but honestly, it's fun to watch them become just like beasts. I have one over here that needs something to climb on. I have more than one that needs something to climb on. But anyway, these roots are fucking ridiculous. Oh, you're about to touch the floor. Okay. And the roots, it's so funny. They don't necessarily mean anything. Like, they don't mean that they need more water. Like, they're just, this plant is just always looking for something. And, I don't know. I don't know if it's like, is the plant like the person who's never satisfied with their life and always, like, you know, shooting for the horizon, and then they get to the horizon, but the horizon has moved? Is it like that? Is that what monsteras are doing? They always want more, and the grass is never green enough where they are because there's a fucking mirage in the distance that they want to get to? Or are they like me in that they always want more information? And, you know, are they expansive or are they dissatisfied? I can't decide. I feel like this one's dissatisfied. It's kind of shoved in a corner under a grow light. I feel like in nature they're pretty expansive, though. And they may have slightly maniacal tendencies about taking over the world. You know, Pinky and the Brain? Like that. That's monsteras. I'm trash talking my plant. That's mean. I'm sorry, plant. Okay. I'm going to be done. So, yeah. So if you need dirt, happyplants.shop. I am revamping the shop website as soon as the freaking, I got a new website theme, and there's one function that is not working. That is like the main reason that I bought this theme. And I'm like, hey guys, what am I screwing up here? Like, I followed the directions and it's still not working. So yeah, I'm rebuilding my website, and I'm really excited about making it like actually streamlined and not hyper confusing. And then I'm going to rebuild my other website, and then I might rebuild my other website. So shit's going to get real clear around here as soon as possible, because I'm sick of my own there's that alarm again. See, I didn't even edit it. I'm sick of my Frankenstein's monster of a business that is like, you know, when you start with one thing and then the ball starts rolling and you just have to keep you have to keep up with it. So you add another product, and you add another product, and you add another product, and you add another line of business. And then suddenly you wake up one day and you have 15 different soils and like 40 other products, and your website is a goddamn mess and nothing is clear. And people keep emailing you because they're like, what the fuck is up with this? They're like, what do I do? What do I do here? What soil do I use for this plant? And I'm like, oh my God, this is my own fault. So I'm in the process of cleaning up after myself right now. And that's just one piece of the small business owner life, but it's fun. So there's that. Anyway, I'm going to get on with it. If you want to support this podcast, I have a Patreon. It's Oh Happy Plants. You can share the podcast. That is a great way to support it if you don't want to support financially, or if you want dirt. That's another way to support the podcast, because without having a job that actually feeds myself and my kid and my puppy and, you know, like keeps my grow lights on, because that's important, I would not be able to be doing this. And so if you want to buy my dirt, feel free. I have tons of other products. I have not everything you need for plants, but a shit ton of it. like plenty of things that you could use for plants. I have substrates too, and I think I just did this yesterday or the day before. I lowered the prices on a couple of things. Leica was one of those things, and it's not because I got a better deal, and because I was like, this shit is way too expensive. Let me hunt around. And so I bought 50 or 100 bags of the shit. So please buy Leica from me. I have a bulk price. I have a quart size that I think is $6 now. And it's the generous quart, so it's more like a quart and a third, sometimes a quart and a half. I think with Leica, because it doesn't compress at all, it's going to be more like a quart and a third. So that's, what is that? Over 5 cups, which is a solid deal in terms of what the internet charges for. One time I bought some from Amazon and it got here and I was like, wait, are you kidding? This is the bag? And then I looked at the website and I'm like, oh, they sold it by weight. And I didn't even ask how much was in there by volume. It's fucking heavy. And that's kind of rude to sell a really heavy item by weight, because it's then it seems like you're getting a lot. Nice trick. Worked on me. Wasn't paying attention. And so I don't sell like that because I want to be straight with you. But yeah, anyway, if you want to support the podcast, all of those things are great. Or just share the podcast. If you share it on Facebook, if you share it in plant groups, if you hear this episode or, another episode and you see somebody in a plant group who is like, hey, how do I do this? Or I'm having trouble with my alocasia. I have an episode all about alocasias. It's called Amazing Alocasias. I want to say it's number 63, but I might be crazy. I probably made that up. It might be number 37. I don't know. Anyways, it's back before 100 though. I can tell you that. And I'm sure there's somewhere where you can go where you can actually search that. Oh, you want to know where it is? It's on the member site. This is what I mean by the Frankenstein's monster. I don't even remember where I put shit. So I actually went, because on podcast platforms, if you go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, you can search for the Houseplant Coach podcast, and you can search you could search alocasias, but I don't think it really gives you good results. I don't think it even searches the title for the fucking word that you're searching for. I've tried it and I've Googled things, and once in a while it'll come up with an episode that's relevant, but half the time I can't remember what I called my damn episodes. And usually it's something about what's in the title. Or usually I say something about what I'm talking about, but one of them is called Just the Tip and Other Lies. What is that about? Is it a dirty joke? Yes. Or is it a joke about dirt? Also, yes. It's a joke about using your finger to measure the moisture in soil. And so, where is that searchable at all? It's not. Except if you go to the if you go to the member site, members.ohhappyplants.online, and it's free. And the main site will always be free. I'm not ever going to charge for that. I will eventually have courses, but those will be a separate thing that you can buy separately. Duh. Let me just redundancy award here. So if you go onto there is a section that has the majority of the podcast episodes searchable by keyword. So if you type in alocasia, you will get all of the relevant alocasia specific episodes. If you type in orchid, you will get, I think there's one on orchids, maybe. If you type in watering, there are quite a few on that. Pests, fertilizer, stuff like that. I tagged things with keywords in there because that just seemed nice. And I actually spent... God, it was nearly a year and a half ago on my flight out to DC. That's what I did, because I knew I needed a project on that flight, because it was to go out to meet all of Sean's coworkers for his wake. And so I'm like, I need to keep myself busy. So let me do a project. And so that's what I did. And I got through most of it, and now it's searchable. So if you need a reason to join the member site, there's a reason right there, searchable information. It's more useful that way, because things that aren't useful really piss me off. So, and that's the whole point of all of this, because the majority of the houseplant care info out there is this echo chamber of useless nonsense, and I just can't handle it. So I hope this helped. And now I'm just rambling and I'm going to shut my mouth. And I've been saying that for about 20 minutes, I think. So we're actually done now. And but if you do want to support sharing the podcast, or even just sharing about the company or about the member site if you're in there, all of that is super, super helpful. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm more active on Facebook because I guess I'm an elder millennial. Somebody told me I was one of those, and I'm like, I'm of the generation that doesn't freaking define generations. And that feels more like Gen X. And like, honestly, with how I was raised, like, I could build anything. I could probably figure out how to build a jet turbine if I wanted to. Like, not only engineer the damn thing, but then actually do it myself, like with welding shit. So if that's not Gen X, then I don't know what is. Anyway, complete nutcase. The generation of nutcases, that's what that is. So, if you do want to help this podcast / business / crazy ass sitting on the couch with her dog, go ahead and share that shit. And thank you. I hope you guys have a good day. I'm going to continue laughing at myself, but by myself now. And if you haven't laughed at yourself today, good for you, because maybe you're less ridiculous than me, but also it's really fun. So try it. So yeah, and Drumstick says hi. Bye guys.